When we look at the last 12 months, what would you say was the stance of the private sector in terms of corporate governance?
In fact, corporate governance had gone through a lot of reforms during last 12 months. So the regulation-wise, there had been a lot of changes, a lot of good changes towards corporate governance, mainly because they understand the importance of corporate governance, the advantages such as creating right accountability within your organization and making right decisions, effective decision making, facilitating effective implementation. So all these are correctly understood by entities and they implement these principles whether there's a rule or not.
How do you think the government should actually establish a regulatory framework which ensures corporate governance but is more like an enabler to growth and not a hindrance to growth?
Actually, the corporate governance principles are not a hindrance to growth. It in fact is an enabler of growth. If you go through some of these corporate governance principles, which is coming in like rules, some are quite basic because it defines the minimum number of independent directors in a board. So I believe corporate governance rules needs to be there. I don't think you should flex it, but what's important is you need to create awareness. I think it should be done a little bit more to create awareness as to why corporate governance.
Has corporate governance become just a tick box activity? We asked this from Thamali Rodrigo. Stay tuned.
For 30 years, LMD has been the voice of business in Sri Lanka, capturing the pulse of the nation's corporate landscape through its iconic covers. Each cover tells a story, from the first edition in 1994 to the present day, narrating key moments, leaders and trends that have shaped Sri Lanka's business ecosystem. Over the years, LMD covers have featured thought leaders, business pioneers and game-changing innovations, reflecting the evolution of industries and the economy. As we celebrate 30 years, these covers represent more than just publications. They are a testament to LMD's legacy of excellence in business journalism and its unwavering commitment to being Sri Lanka's leading voice of business. LMD, Sri Lanka's voice of business, a legacy of 30 years.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. The topic of conversation today is corporate governance. And I'm here with Thamali Rodrigo, partner at KPMG, who's also the head of enterprise advisory, corporate governance and restructuring. Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
For the first question, I thought we'll ease our audience into the topic. We talk of economic revival, and I think it's slowly but surely happening. And the private sector is a key pillar, if not the most important pillar. When we look at the last 12 months, what would you say was the stance of the private sector in terms of corporate governance?
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me. In fact, corporate governance had gone through a lot of reforms during last 12 months. Starting from 1st October 2024, SEC and CSC introduced the reforms to its listing rules. New corporate governance guidelines were issued. And from January 2025, Central Bank also had revived reforms to its corporate governance requirements. So the regulation-wise, there had been a lot of changes, a lot of good changes towards corporate governance. So that's from regulators' point of view. In relation to how private sector has implemented or received these changes, you can't really generalize it. Let me explain to you why. Mainly because there are two types of entities that we'll see. First of all, if you are a listed entity or if you are a regulated entity, you have to comply with the rule. And entities do comply because they need to stay listed or, otherwise you'll be penalized. So let's talk about these two different kinds of entities that we see. The entities are the ones who understand why they need corporate governance. They anyway apply corporate governance principles in leading their entities. mainly because they understand the importance of corporate governance, the advantages such as creating right accountability within your organization and making right decisions, effective decision making, facilitating effective implementation. At the same time, also facilitating the oversight necessary for you to ensure what's required is happening. So all these are correctly understood by entities and they implement these principles whether there's a rule or not. So for them, complying with it is automatic.
The exemplary organization.
Exactly. So that's the one kind. That's one kind that we see. There are also entities who implement the rules because they need to tick the box. So that is really how we see the corporate sector approaching the corporate governance rules. But just to conclude this answer, I would say the entities who implement corporate governance principles implement it because they want to grow and sustain in business, not to tick the box.
Thamali, thank you very much. That was a very good opening to our conversation.
Thank you.
If I ask you, when we talk of corporate governance, how do you think the government should actually establish like a regulatory framework which ensures corporate governance but is more like an enabler to growth and not a hindrance to growth?
Okay. So let me answer it this way. Corporate governance, well, government's role or the regulator's role in relation to corporate governance, like I said, is to provide rules, guidelines, and so on as a regulator. I believe that's important. Now, the regulations are applicable, just simply put, if you're a listed entity, public listed entity, you have to comply with the regulation. And if you're a bank or an insurance company or anything that is dealing with public funds, you have regulations and you have to comply with them. Now, these things are there as regulators or representatives of the government implement these things to ensure the public interest is protected. If you're a listed entity, public invests in you. Probably the public investment is the minority portion and there are major owners.
Yeah.
But corporate governance rules are important to ensure the public interest is protected. So I believe rules should be there. What I believe is actually the corporate governance principles are not a hindrance to growth. It in fact is an enabler of growth. How I would think what's not there in currently as we speak is awareness, the benefits, why an organization should implement certain basic corporate governance principles. If you go through some of these corporate governance principles, which is coming in like rules, some are quite basic because, it defines the minimum number of independent directors in a board. Why do you need that kind of composition defined if you don't have independence facilitated within the board composition? The whole purpose of a board is not there.
Yes.
So all these rules could be taken as a guideline, and if corporates understands the benefits of it, I'm sure, like I told you earlier, people will anyway implement it for its benefits.
Of course.
So I believe corporate governance rules needs to be there. I don't think you should flex it, but what's important is you need to create awareness. If there are a lot of programs that are happening. In fact, as from KPMG, we partner with Sri Lanka Institute of Directors and even with CS Sri Lanka. Whenever they organize events, we knowledge partner with them with a lot of interest because of this very reason I told you. I personally believe, and KPMG as a firm believes, that right corporate governance is the path for any country's growth, especially where we are right now as a country. So, in fact, like I said, SLID, the Sri Lanka Institute of Directors, there's a wonderful corporate governance program for directors. CA Sri Lanka does in both with both institutions, even with other institutions. We do KPMG knowledge partners, do presentations, help them to share knowledge. So that's probably the way to go. Even regulators like SEC, I'm sure even central bank, SEC has taken a lot of effort. They also organize events to create corporate governance awareness. I think it should be done a little bit more to create awareness as to why corporate governance.
And Thamali, if I ask you, how important is it for businesses to instill corporate governance when we look at business longevity?
Okay. It's extremely important. In fact, in any business, if you don't have right corporate governance practices, you probably will survive for short term, but you will very soon see the repercussions. So let me put it this way, just to let you know the best practices, and then probably you could understand why it will aid business longevity. So a well-structured board, a good board, is supposed to spend 60% of its time discussing strategy and planning, not discussing, day-to-day firefighting. It's not that. So you are supposed to talk about strategy and plans. Where are the plans going? What's happening to the strategy. It's more like looking outside and seeing whether your organization is ready. So that is what's expected of a board.
Wow.
Another best practice, or another very important facilitation a board should do is to facilitate accountability at every level of the organization. What you'd see is when you have very strong, very effective leaders in organizations, they are probably the managing directors or the CEOs. Facilitating that accountability becomes extremely important, even for that CEO, and to safeguard the organizations from some aggressive actions. So boards are there to facilitate that accountability. So that's a very important element. Because you facilitate accountability, you will also see implementation of decisions that the board makes. That's the second side of it. Then third most important thing is boards are also responsible to safeguard its assets, the organization's assets. So they provide that through this, provide by facilitating oversight through right risk management procedures, and they're supposed to ensure you have right internal controls in the organization. So these three things, I mean, if you talk about strategy and planning, if you facilitate accountability, and if you manage risks and ensure you have right controls and procedures in place,
Longevity
longevity is a given, right? So yeah, so that's probably, I believe, that's why I believe corporate governance is the ingredient to ensure that business survives for many years with its growth, sustainable growth.
It's time now to take a very short break, but we'll soon be back to talk more about corporate governance.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Welcome back to the show. We're in conversation with Thamali Rodrigo, partner at KPMG. Thamali, at the beginning of our conversation, I said that the private sector, really fuels growth. And within the private sector, I think in Sri Lanka, family businesses play a very big, vital role. To start off a little bit of discussion about this segment, when family businesses are implementing or ensuring corporate governance, what do you think are the most significant challenges that they face?
Okay. So let me start by agreeing with you. Family businesses actually are the backbone of our economy. In fact, even in the world, that's the backbone. They do such a great job, and family businesses have excellent strengths. Being a family business, to ensure that, and they are very, very resilient. And if you see during our both crises Sri Lanka faced and the world faced through COVID, as well as through economic crisis, you would see our family businesses had been quite resilient because of the unique nature of family-owned businesses. So that's the good side of it.
Yes.
Let me come to some of the challenges of the challenges that family businesses face by letting you know that a lot of the family businesses at some stage becomes stagnant. They stop growing.
Right.
Main reason being, in fact, these businesses which are successful have been started and led by very strong entrepreneurs who are very strong leaders, at the same time very capable people. So they grow the business very fast.
Yes.
And because they do an excellent job, business really outgrows their capacity.
Yeah.
So when that happens, these strong leaders, unfortunately, they will not understand the business had grown above their capacity. When you have a large business, then it's time you need to step back and implement these very corporate governance principles, not for anything else, but to facilitate this large businesses' growth and sustainability.
Yes.
But that's not being done. And as a result, a lot of our family businesses actually are large ones. A lot of them are stagnant as we speak.
Wow.
So you asked me what the biggest challenge is.
Yes.
A lot of these family business owners, plus the ones who are also leading, has a very big resistance to change.
Right.
Now, why do you resist change is perfectly understandable, because they have created, it's like their
Empire.
plus their own child.
Yes.
Lot of effort,
Of course.
lot of hard work that has gone into it. You have a lot of affiliation, emotions in it as well. You have emotional attachment in these as well.
Yeah.
Most of the time what happens is, because of your attachment, you also create that fear.
Right.
And you will not trust another system to take over what you've been doing.
Right.
So that is the biggest challenge. There is a lot of resistance to change. Plus another thing is, a lot of the businesses fail to understand when they're stagnant. They fail to understand when the business is overgrown.
Right.
Their normal way of managing it. So you need to implement new ways of managing.
Yes.
Ideally, write corporate governance principles to facilitate the next phase.
Thamali, that's really interesting insight. The emotional attachment and all of that, are these things unique to Sri Lanka's family businesses, or is it always been the way everywhere?
Definitely, these are not unique to Sri Lankan family businesses. These issues are universal. In fact, because I advise family businesses, I can tell you, all family businesses have very predictable issues. Very predictable issues. In the world, all family businesses go through the same predictable issues because of this very nature of attachment, very nature of change in business life cycle as well as family's life cycle. These are very, it's universal. It is not unique to Sri Lanka, certainly not.
Thamali, you shed light on, like, something very, very insightful, should say, about, the resistance to change. So when family businesses actually do decide to ensure corporate governance, how can they do so while, of course, staying true to their founding values?
Okay. So let me start by saying, first thing you need to do, first thing we do also when we work with families, is creating awareness of what corporate governance is.
Right.
Because a lot of the people, when you use the word corporate governance, they shy away or run away, saying that, oh, it's for a listed entity or a regulated entity like banks, and not for us. But like I said earlier, corporate governance principles are there to facilitate growth and sustainability. It is not to shy away, and it's corporate governance is
Good for you.
yeah, it's good for you. And corporate governance is about leadership. Leadership, how you lead an entity by facilitating transparency, by facilitating accountability, and of course by facilitating responsibility within the organization. So when entities or owners or leaders of these organizations understand why corporate governance for you, then it becomes so much easier. So starting point should be not only the people who work in the business or owners who work in the business, entire family should understand what is corporate governance and why it's important. You have to create awareness. That's the starting points. Then assume if you're a family who haven't had a board meeting ever.
Okay.
You have a board on paper, but
not a meeting.
not a meeting. So you should not confuse a board meeting to a management meeting. This is a confusion a lot of the families in business has. When I ask them, they say, oh, we have management meetings every week. We sit and we get to know what's happening. But board meetings are not for that. It's not to get to know what's happening. It's to sit and have a discussion. Like I said earlier, 60% of your time should be discussing about the future as board. So a good starting point would be, after you understand and create that awareness, a good starting point would be to have a structured regular meeting, maybe once a month or at least once a quarter, with an agenda, focusing on future. 60% of your time, discuss about what are you going to do for the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. Talk about the future. Get your management to present to you about their view about the future.
Yes.
And you need to then understand it's not a management meeting. And in this meeting, talk about what could go wrong within your organization. That's about looking at risk management. You probably may not have a risk management team or a risk management framework. You probably need not have for the size of your organization, but it's a good question to ask at this structured meeting. What can go wrong? Can our operations stop tomorrow, or what happens? Do we have contingency plans? That's a discussion you could have.
Right.
Then also what you could do is to see, create that accountability. If you have a CEO, or even if you have an owner who's working as a CEO, as a board, probably ask, where are we headed as an organization? How have we progressed? What are our results? So this structured meeting, do it as a practice. One good thing an entity or a family-owned business could think of is probably to invite someone who's independent.
Right.
To even as an observer.
Okay.
Why you do? In fact, we use them as little tools.
Right.
When you have a third party sitting at your meeting, that naturally you will bring in that discipline to your discussion.
It's not emotional anymore.
It's not emotional anymore. So this is a very basic place to start, but I strongly believe families in business should start at some level.
Of course.
Because like I told you, unfortunately, a lot of our families in businesses are stagnant, or they will get stagnant if they don't implement these practices. So start small, and then you will understand the advantages of this, and then you can improve. So this probably could be a very easy place to start. Anyone could do it.
Exactly.
And probably that's how I would say that you could start.
And when you do start, how can you ensure that there is proper conflict management, there's, family unity doesn't get impacted at the end of the day?
Okay. So good question, Ruwandi, because this is something every family needs to understand. Now, a lot of the family businesses when it comes to this family business world and having multi-generational family business, the biggest topic is conflict.
Yeah.
Now, we need to take a step back and understand why conflict. All the conflict starts about the wealth, about how the business is managed. My son is not given this designation. My husband is not here. A lot of issues, right? But corporate governance, if you are an entity who has proper corporate governance principles practiced from at some point, if you start, this will really pave the way for you to ensure that there is no conflict. Now, let me explain to you why. Like I explained to you earlier, corporate governance really facilitates transparency.
Yes.
Now, especially in relation to a family business board, when we structure family business boards, we ensure that there will be some amount of, not some, there will be family representation within the board.
Yes.
And we also ensure that there is independent representation within the board as well as management's representation. And once you have that composition placed and once you discuss matters that are really reserved for the board, like, how have we done, and also facilitate accountability, automatically the result is that your decisions are very transparent.
Yes.
Business activities will become very transparent. So transparency will lead to trust. So in a business which creates trust, not only within the family owners, but also with all stakeholders, there will not be conflict. So conflict resolution start at the entity, how it's managed through right corporate governance principles. So it is not only by having meeting family every week. It is important from family's point of view, but to ensure that family has the trust in its management, corporate governance is the answer.
Wow. We've been in conversation with Thamali Rodrigo, partner at KPMG, who's also the head of Enterprise Advisory, Corporate Governance and Restructuring. Thamali, it was such an insightful conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ruwandi. Thanks.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and X. Thank you for watching and stay safe.